There we go.
Okay. Turnitin Originality is a tool that helps institutions uphold academic integrity. A lot of people will refer to Turnitin as a plagiarism detector. Technically, what it is a similarity detector. Can those similarities be plagiarism? Yes, but there are times that what Turnitin finds is not plagiarism. So the caveat that I always give to faculty, now you probably will hear me say that several times today, is that you have to take what Turnitin gives you, analyze it, and then make your own judgment as to whether a student has plagiarized, used AI, or committed some infraction against our institution's policies, regarding academic integrity, submitting their own work. So what I want to do today with Turnitin is show you about the tool. We'll walk through an originality report, and we'll talk about the different sections of the report and how to interpret those scores that you get. So like I mentioned, a similarity score comes on the similarity report. The similarity report is the main output of Turnitin. So when a student submits an assignment, and it's only available in the assignments tool, when a student submits an assignment and Turnitin is turned on, what will come back is a similarity report. And the score that's on that report is the percentage of a paper's content that matches the database. And the database is huge that Turnitin compares to. It's a proprietary database. They've contracted with companies for academic content, journals, textbooks, those types of things. Also is the papers that have been submitted to the repository previously. Since Turnitin started, they've had the option in the settings of Turnitin, when you're setting it up for an assignment, do you want it submitted to the repository or not? And then it also goes out and it looks at current and archived internet sources. So it's, and I can't remember the number off of the top of my head, but it's in the millions and millions of things that when an assignment is submitted, that Turnitin will match against. And when that report comes back to you, there are 5 different colors that there's a little flag and then the report name next to it. That flag can be 5 different colors. A blue flag is no matching text. A green is 1 word to 24%. Yellow is 25 to 49. Orange is 50 to 74. And red is 75 to 100. I think sometimes faculty tend to get worked up about the color of that flag. Oh my goodness, red. Well, depending upon how your assignment is created, that red flag of 75 to 100% might mean that it's just similar but not plagiarism. So we'll talk about how that score is actually calculated. So when it goes out and it looks for similarities, let's say you've put together an assignment where you're having students work on different pieces of it. Maybe you have them do some, like an annotated bibliography, and they're writing some things, and then you have them create that into a draft of a paper. So, and you're having Turnitin review it at all these different stages. Well, each time it sees those, that score is going to go up. So let's say at the very end, you've had them submit a draft of the paper that you've looked at, and then the final paper comes back 100%. Of course, it's going to come back at 100 or close to 100% because it's matching against itself for all those times, because probably what you've done is you've submitted to the repository. So you can, when you set up Turnitin, let's say you have an assignment like that. You probably, for the first component pieces, don't want to submit to the repository, because then that's going to mean it's matching against itself. So you would only probably want to do it at the very end, where it's their final paper that they turn in and what they would give to somebody else possibly down the road. So that's just one instance of where a score is high, but it's not necessarily plagiarism. Another instance can be if you're doing an assignment that's somewhat template driven, and there's a lot of language that's going to stay the same for all of the students. If you have that submits to the repository, the first student that turns it in is going to be fine. Every student after that turns it in is going to get dinked, because it's looking at that original template in the repository, and it's going to match the language every time that template language is going to ping. So all the other students that submit after that first are going to get dinged. And then let's say you use that assignment from term to term to term, then not even the first student the next time will have the benefit of having a lower score, because it's going to see it from the spring 23 semester. Now we're in the fall 24 semester, or spring 24 semester. So that's why I always tell folks, you have to dig in. No matter what that color is, you have to go into the report and you have to look and actually see what it's flagged in those reports. And don't just be, oh my goodness, 50%, the students plagiarized, I'm failing them. You have to dig in and look and see how that 50% was actually generated. So what I have here is I have an assignment that was run through Turnitin. It's a document that I created myself, so I know it's going to show different things in it. So for example, this one is showing 16%, a green flag. So when you come in and pull it up, this is what the interface looks like. So we're now actually in our instance of Turnitin. So your student's assignment is going to be on the left, and you're going to have information about the assignment over here on the right. So that green flag is being generated by this 16% similarity score. And in this part of the panel, it's actually going to show you where it found matches. Again, might not be plagiarism, but where it found matches. So you'll see up here on the top, there's top sources and all sources. So the top sources are the largest matches, okay? If you click to all sources, you'll see it typically does pull up some other matches, but usually they're duplicative of others. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's up to you as to whether you look at just top sources or all sources. The one thing you can do with each one of these, so if you click on them, it's going to show you what part of the paper is the match, okay? Let's say you go through the paper and you determine something is not plagiarism. It's, sometimes it will only match like a phrase of 4 or 5 words. If you consider that to be insignificant, don't worry about it. You can actually turn off and on sources. So if you see this eyeball with the line through it, you can turn that off. Now, this is my biggest match in that paper. You can see it's whole paragraphs. So I'm going to leave that for a second, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So here, let's just look at this one that's a 1%. So here you can see, it's matched 3 words, and then it's matched an and the za, and then embracing. I'm going to say this isn't worth a match. I'm not worried about this. So you can actually go to this eyeball and click it, and you've now excluded that from this calculation. You've taken it off. Happens to be the same words for this number 2. I'm not worried about it, so I'm taking that off. And you'll see, as I've done this similarity score has changed. So if you have a document that has a lot of them, as you go through and you say, oh, that one's important, no, this one is important, you can then click these, and you'll see that similarity score update, and then you'll eventually come to one, like once you've done your whole analysis of the assignment, of what the true similarity is between the student's paper and what you think is important in the databases. Now, I will tell you something to think about with that percentage as well. So if you have a very large paper, okay, that similarity score, it might be an important, so just how sometimes you get big numbers, they're artificially inflated, that also can happen on the opposite side, that you can have low numbers, but there still is something important in it. So let's say that's why you really should look at all the Turnitin reports and not just the ones that have high numbers. So let's say you have a particularly large paper and you have something that comes in at 5%. Normally somebody goes through the list, 5%, probably doesn't pay any attention to it, just keeps going through the list to see if there's anything that's higher. Well, think about a section of a large paper, because they're doing that calculation based upon word totals. So let's say you're having your students write a 20-page paper, and something like this came up, 2 paragraphs, which were copied word from another source. This is only 2 pages, single spaced. So you figure double spaced will take it to 4 pages. But imagine that 2 paragraphs in a 20 or a 25% or 20 or 25 page paper, that similarity score is going to be half, if not a little lower. So I just wanted to show you that even something with a low score can have plagiarism that you need to pay attention to. So that kind of covered the sources there. Does anybody have any questions about, turning a source off and on and how it's going to impact that score? Okay. So I now want to move over into these 4 buttons over here. So Turnitin now has what they call flags. And there's 2 things that it will flag against. And these are pretty much ways that students try to get around the system of when they have plagiarized and they want to try to confuse Turnitin. But they've built in detectors to try to find the most prevalent of these things. So sometimes what students will do is they'll put in hidden text. So, and to me, it's harder to do this than it is to, just write the paper yourself. But then again, I'm not one that ever would have cheated like that. So let's say, for example, a student goes out and they buy a paper, contract cheating. We all know that it happens. There are websites you can go to predominantly from foreign countries that will produce a paper for you or have a paper in their database already written on XYZ topic. You pay them some money, they send you the file. Often what happens in those files is they will put hidden text, and basically it's text. So they might use hidden quotation marks. So let's say, for example, you have, and that's why I never turn, I never select omit quotations. So one of the things when you're setting up Turnitin, you can have it skip quotations, things that are actually in quotation marks. They can be traditional quotation marks, and there are alternative types of quotation marks, such as carets on both sides of things. And there's a whole different series of these different types of quotation marks that it will ignore. So if you have that selected, you run the paper through Turnitin, and they have hidden quotation marks. Basically, what they do is if you go into the background of this paper, they'll have quotation marks that here, sometimes they appear as like a little spacing problem, but they'll actually be hidden quotation marks around paragraphs. So if you have that ignore quotations turned on, it'll skip over the information that truly has been plagiarized. So a lot of times when they're doing that in these contract papers, they'll have like these quotation marks at the very beginning and the very end. So when you run the paper through, it looks like nothing comes up at all, but that's because the whole paper is a big quotation. So it's going to avoid it. So that's what they call hidden text. And there's other types of characters that they can put in that will try to trip up the system. But that's one of the flags that will come up for you, is these hidden text. The other things that students do is they will actually go in sometimes and change characters to different fonts. So this L might actually be a 1 in a different font type. Or they'll find a 0 that looks like an O, and they'll make out these swaps, and they'll embed these swaps throughout their paper, because what happens is Turnitin is going through looking word by word, sentence by sentence. When it gets to these characters that are different, it's like, oh, different word, okay, nothing. And then it'll, keep going, oh, different word. It doesn't read it as hearts or her or what, outside. It sees something else and then outside, like the UTSIDE. So again, students are crafty. They try to find different ways to, trick this. And those are those things that come up under this flags for review. Okay. The other one that I find kind of interesting is this document details. It can tell you, what font. It can tell you, if there are words, common words, that's, sometimes if somebody's copied something from, let's say, British English, instead of having an S, there will be a Z, or vice versa, So when there's different types of spelling, it will flag, you'll find those here. It can be different kinds of fonts. Again, a copy paste, somebody took it from here, put it in, it looks similar, but it's technically different. This will flag if there's different fonts in the paper. It'll tell you, what it was written in. So there's all sorts of interesting information when you actually open up this document details. I personally like the spelling one, because, if you're reading a lot of, of a paper and, similar topics, that sort of thing, I find to myself, even when I write, sometimes our brain puts the correct word there, even if it's wrong. So this is a way that it kind of makes those things jump out to you. You see judgment and, it looks right to you, but then it goes back and like, oh no, it is spelled wrong. So just another place that you can go in and kind of inspect that paper a little more deeply. So that's kind of the similarity side of Turnitin. The original, what we'll like plagiarism part of it. I now want to switch over and talk about the AI capabilities that they've added in the past year. So I'm going to go back to our presentation for a second. And this is a caveat that Turnitin puts out on all of their pages when they talk about AI. They pretty much say that their model may not always be accurate, and you should not use it as the sole basis for adverse actions against a student. I say that even for the plagiarism. Again, don't take that number as being a hard number. Look into it. Same thing with the AI, because AI is difficult to determine sometimes. So I want to play you this video here real quick. I'm not even in my presentation. Is he going to work or is he not going to work? There we go. This is going to talk about false positives. Okay. So basically what he's saying is that it errs in favor of the students. When it does make a mistake, it errs in favor of the students. Now, what I can tell you is from what I have seen with their product. So I have a subscription to Chat. Chat GPT is the one that caused the big furor. There's a product called GPT-0, and that's the product that the student created shortly after Chat GPT came out and created a whole business around now. We have a subscription to that. So if you have a situation that you aren't 100% sure about and you want another opinion on, we have their paid educator subscription that I can run it through for you. And all the ones that I've done up to this point, what it's flagged and what Turnitin has flagged have been almost identical. So, I have a lot of confidence in Turnitin's interpretation of what is AI and what isn't. Now, that being said, there are, we have some people that want to turn in paragraphs like this long to try to determine if it's AI writing. All of these detectors really are designed for papers. Most of them have minimum word counts, somewhere 300 words or more, that you have to have before it will be able to reliably tell you that there is AI writing or not. So if you have, short discussion board posts, those sorts of things, you're going to come back and Turnitin. Actually, will give you on the report, and I'll show you where it does it here in a second. It won't even run the AI detector. There'll just be like a line through that item, and you won't get any score at all. And it's not because it's broken, it's because there's not enough data for it to determine whether it's AI writing or not. Because what happens when these detectors try to determine AI writing, they compare a word and the word next to it, and they look at the probability based upon the data that they've looked at. So artificial intelligence writes based upon the probability it thinks that of what the next word is going to be. So let's say you put a boy walked. It's going to look through its training set, and it's going to say, okay, the probability that the next word is walked is going to be down is X number, so we're going to use that word. So the AI detectors are the opposite. It's looking to see how strong of a probability it is between those two words. When we write as humans, we are very unpredictable in our word choices. AI writing has this very strong predictability between words and across sentences. So it runs all these sorts of algorithms behind the scene, like I said, between words, across sentences, between paragraphs, in order to determine that score, whether it thinks it's AI writing or not. So the short submissions don't have enough data in order for it to do these calculations. So I always tell folks, even if it's right over that 300 threshold, which is what it is for Turnitin, is 300 words, that is not going to be as reliable as if you have a 5-page paper or 10-page paper. And for me personally, that's where I worry about students using AI if I haven't let them use it. I mean, I have assignments in the courses that I teach that I let them use AI. I want them, they're going to encounter it in the workplace. And it can help. For some of the things you do as an instructional designer, it can make our jobs easier. So I want them to experiment with it. I want them to see where it helps them and where, it might not be a good use of using it for this task. So I want them to learn that now in more of a safe space rather than going out into the workplace and possibly making an error because they've used it maybe when they shouldn't have. So longer, better than shorter. So let's go back to our course. To our document here. And you'll see down here, this is that AI button. So previously you would have only seen like these things in the reports, and when they turned on the AI, now this down here is new. So when it doesn't have enough data to run it through, there will be 2 hyphens in here. And that means that there's not enough data in order for it to come up with a prediction. But if you click on this, then kind of the AI report comes up. And it will give you a prediction of how much it thinks this work was generated by AI. And the one thing and I'll explain how this document was created so you can see this real time. So this is a document that I purposely put together with AI writing and plagiarism. So if we go back here for 1 second to this mixed document. Okay. These 2 paragraphs here are 100% plagiarism. Now, in my case, it's self-plagiarism. I knew these are 2 paragraphs from my dissertation. So I knew that they would come back because my dissertation is out there, on ProQuest and some of the other services. So I knew it would come back as plagiarism. Now it's self-plagiarism, and technically a violation of academic integrity. But that's where these 2 paragraphs came from. So I seeded those in a document written by artificial intelligence. I went to ChatGPT and asked it to write an essay about Elsa from Frozen. And then in the middle of it, I put, here's those paragraphs right here that I'm highlighting. Those are the 2 paragraphs that I wrote. Now, you'll notice something. It says that this document is plagiarized, except these paragraphs right here. So this is what was human writing. These paragraphs were actually also written by AI, but it's not flagged. There's a quirk in these AI detectors that the transition between AI writing and human writing, it has a hard time judging. So you'll often find if you have a whole document that there may be parts of it that are not, again, erring to the side of the writer, that are not flagged because it just can't detect reliably what it is. So I wanted to show you in that paragraph that this actually would be higher than 74% if it had flagged, these 2 areas of the document. So what I tell folks when they get something that, and it looks like this, I always ask them to have a conversation with the student. I've had people write, what do I do? Well, go and talk to the student. Ask them, did they do it? Sometimes, just by asking the question, they fess up. Sometimes they don't, and they'll say, oh, I used this or that. There are other things they can use just besides Chat GPT to write. Um, there are AI systems that they can take a paragraph and it will switch the words around. Um, so it uses other words from, the original, but it's really saying the same thing. I mean, so there are all these different kinds of AI tools that they can use. And there's been a couple cases where that's what it was they used some other type of tool. Like a paraphrasing tool instead of it completely writing something for them. So sometimes it will pick up on those. Grammarly, um, I don't believe most of them. I think they've trained their models, that if it goes in and helps with punctuation and citations and those sorts of things, that it's going to pick that up because it's really looking at the words. What words are they using, not necessarily commas and spaces and semicolons and all of that. So, what questions do you have about Turnitin? What can I answer for you? Have you guys had instances that, you want to talk through, kind of, give some examples to the group and we can walk through them? I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have.
I guess the only question I might have, I mean, like I said, I have had instances where I haven't used the AI thing, but with the Turnitin percentage,
Okay.
I have had instances where like it's been way too high and I went back to the student. I said, okay, you gotta work on this. It's not good enough. What is your acceptable percentage? I mean, what do you recommend as an acceptable percentage?
Of AI?
Either of AI or of the Turnitin percentage, like the flag, like I mean, do you consider um like a green, one word to 24% acceptable? I guess that's my question. Like,
Well,
how far do I how far do I let it go?
Okay. So in terms of AI, honestly, that's going to depend upon what policy you've set for your class. I mean,
Okay.
we really are asking all faculty to put some sort of AI statement in their syllabus as to whether, and there's kind of three, countries, I guess you could be in with AI. I don't know what other analogy to use at the moment. You know, you let it go. Some faculty members are like, I know you're going to use it. Okay, you're doing yourself the disservice. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just if you use it, you use it. If whatever. Then you have the completely opposite of that of absolutely none, no AI, no none. And then you have down the middle, which is where I tend to be of there are things I want you to use it for. I will disclose those. Using those outside of those parameters, it will be a violation of, our academic integrity policies, those sorts of things. But, you know, so I'm giving you parameters. So those are kind of the three camps. Maybe that's the best word, camps you can be in, with AI. And until you disclose that to your students, so we had a situation last academic year of where, all of this, was just starting to hit. We told people, turn it in, turn this detector on, and they found a student, had used AI. So what they tried to do was go back and run all of the, and they had told their students at that point, like when this came out, I don't want you using AI. So then they tried to go backwards in time and review all of their other work and then change their grades because they said, oh, you used AI in this stuff previously. It's kind of, if you don't tell them it's bad, you can't hold them accountable to it. You know, the term that I've used for that is deceptive grading. That if you don't say you can't do this, then they assume it's okay. So that's why we tell everyone to put a statement in their syllabus, what is your AI policy? And it's also one of the reasons why the institution has not come out with a blanket statement on artificial intelligence in terms of is it permitted or not permitted? Because some faculty members are incorporating it into their courses. We should be doing that. There's probably not, if we sat here for another hour, we probably, as we talked through each of your disciplines, could come up with at least a half dozen ways that artificial intelligence is changing your discipline and the way students will be using it in the workplace once they leave. Healthcare, they're using it to analyze tests and different things like that. That people have x-rays and EKGs and all sorts of different things. Business, they're using it to, write marketing copy and generate websites and all sorts of things. So it's out there, they're going to hit it, in their careers. So that's why I think it's incumbent upon us to show our students how to use it ethically in their work. So the AI is a little different than the plagiarism. Again, it's what you can have, depending upon the assignment, it can be a small number and it's important. So that's why I really never look at that percentage. I look at, if something comes up, what is it that caused that percentage?
Okay, that makes sense and that helps.
Okay.
So normally, this is Martin. Normally when I run a report, my percentages, the high numbers are coming in, and it says internet. And when I click on that, it'll show parts of the assignment where, as you have shown, the couple paragraphs highlighted, maybe in the one that I'm reviewing, may have not an entire paragraph highlighted, but maybe like every other word. It's a word here and a word there, but in my opinion, maybe it's just too many words that are similar. And so it doesn't seem like it was enough paraphrasing, and that it could be on the edge of
right.
So I'm kind of disconcerted on how to evaluate that.
So what my guess is, if I'm understanding what you described correctly, is they probably took a paragraph from somewhere and went in and change this word, change that word, change this word, so they went in and they changed a few words. So it's binging the whole paragraph minus those words that they went in and changed. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
Okay.
Affirmative. Yes.
I guess if that were me in a situation like that, the first time that I saw that, I might have a conversation with them about how to properly paraphrase.
Gotcha. I've done that. Okay. Yes.
And then from there say, I need to see improvement in this. We've talked about paraphrasing, really you're not doing it correctly. Here's how you need to do it. So, I guess I'm a believer in not the one, not one strike and you're out, that you have to, this is really a teaching tool for
Correct.
us with our students.
Yes, I agree.
So I think you handled that right.
Okay, thank you.
Marilee, can you talk about whether you should allow students to see the report or not? Is there pros and cons to that? Because I've seen it in both ways in different courses.
Typically, students do see the reports. Now, they do not see the AI report. That functionality is only available for the instructors. It's not available for the students. Now, some courses have a draft mode, like they'll have a draft assignment in their courses that students can see the report. I guess I think some students don't realize how much they're relying on other people's work. So I have mixed feelings about giving them, those drafts and an opportunity to see. I mean, I think by the time you get to the collegiate level, you should understand, quotations and citation and paraphrasing and all those different things that, what that score ends up being at the very end should not be a surprise to them. But if you're going to dink a student for plagiarism, I mean, obviously you're going to have to show them the report at that point. So I have no problem when they turn in their final assignment, them seeing the report, but I don't necessarily give draft. I don't believe in giving a draft assignment for students to check that. That's just me. That answer your question, Corey?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let me, maybe it's not answered. I appreciate that question. I think in Sakai, there is a button that will allow the student to see their similarity as what, like as they're
Yes.
turning it in. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yes.
Okay, and so what was the recommendation? Allow that to happen or not?
Well, some courses use what they call a draft assignment, okay, which allows students to preview. So, and so there are some programs that in every course, there will be one assignment built into the course that's called draft, okay? You can submit to that draft to get a Turnitin report. It doesn't get turned into the repository. It's just a report that shows what your Turnitin score is. So that, in essence, helps students look in advance if what their number is for them to go back and try to get it lower. I'm not a believer personally in letting students do that. I think that they should know how to write, and they should not be relying on a system if it comes back at 25% or 30% or whatever it is. Okay, let me change two things so that I can get it to 24%, which is going to be acceptable for my instructor. You're going to write how you would write, and because I don't think every case is different as to what that acceptable number is. Some faculty members have a hard line and say it's 20%. They have to come in under 20%. Well, I've just explained that can be an inaccurate way of looking at that report, because a 20% could be low or a 20% could be high for whatever number of reason. So if you put that threshold in your course that it has to be 20%, and you give students the opportunity to submit these drafts in order to get their number lower, are we doing our students any service by doing that? That's, I think, where some of this was coming from, if that helps.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
But that's just my opinion. We have any other? I know I have to address Aaron's Sakai question, and I will, Aaron. Is there any other questions about the operation of Turnitin? Okay. So Aaron, in Sakai, it's always been that students have to click twice. So when they go to submit an assignment, let me think of where I am as a student. Maybe test. Okay. I'm going to log into another browser here. So if they're telling you that this is something new, not true.
Thank you for covering this. It's been mostly second semester freshmen who said they kind of realized that in the fall, their first semesters here, that they realized it was something they just weren't submitting things correctly.
Okay.
And I imagine it's similar to when I worked in the Office of Admissions, kind of the last part of the online application for admission is like a disclaimer that they have to check and submit, that all of this information is correct, yada, yada. But then they click submit there, but then there's a second screen that they have to click submit to finalize it. So I imagine it's
Yes.
similar here.
Why can't I remember my ID number at the moment? Hold on. Oh, that's my problem. I'll be okay. Give me 1 second. Trying to find something where there's an assignment that I can. Where am I as a student? Okay. This isn't going to work at the moment because I'm not in a site as a student.
No, that's okay. I was mostly curious to know, is it something that we could push more in College 101 to just make sure that they're carefully looking at the submission process?
Okay. So College 101, I had asked that all of the faculty that teach College 101 make the students do the Sakai module, in which they have to submit, and Corey, you did that. It's an assignment, a forum, a test. Were there any other kinds of assignments they had to submit in College 101?
I'm pulling up the new master so I can show.
Which gave them the opportunity to submit it as practice. But basically what they're going to do is, this is from our help guide. It has screenshots. Okay. When they submit, okay, there's a submit, and then there's a confirmation screen. Are you sure you want to do this? Okay. And then when they've done it correctly, they will get a confirmation that comes up on the computer, and it will go to their email. So what I always tell students is that if you do not get that message that says you have submitted, you haven't done it correctly. And what'll happen is if they don't hit that submit button twice, it'll show as in progress and not submitted.
Okay,
So
perfect.
it's the same situation you're talking about in your other system.
Yeah,
Is they submit, there's a confirmation, are you sure you want to do this? Submit again, and then it'll show their submission ID, it'll show the time. That's kind of their receipt, their confirmation receipt.
mhm,
And we tell them, keep those emails until the assignment is graded, so they have proof. I mean, it's not often that things disappear. I can't
totally.
think that we've ever had something
Yeah.
disappear once it's been submitted, but just in the off chance it would, they have proof. Yeah, I got a thing that it was submitted. Now,
Okay,
we've had people submit blank things, so they still get one of those,
right.
and then it's submitted. All the data disappeared. Okay. The dog ate my homework, and my house fell down from the brainstorm, whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Um,
yes.
but yeah, it's 2 clicks.
Okay, thank you. And I'm asking from the perspective of working with students who drop below a 2.0 their first semester. And again, I was wondering, wondering if that's something we can push more in College 101, which I am kind of taking the lead on this year. I haven't gotten to look at the module you sent me yet, but I definitely will, and I'll make sure that we're all pushing that. So thank you.
Yeah. So Corey, what else is in there?
So in the chat, I put a link to how Sakai shows you what it looks like from a student to submit something. But in the College 101, and I'll share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. The modules 2A and 2B are supposed to be required to be taught in College 101. So they kind of get these embedded things. They have an opportunity to do a submit of assignment where they attach a file. They have a discussion, so they learn how to post there. There's another assignment there, some more questions, and then how to do some of the stuff. And it really asks them questions. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. How the Turnitin works. There's a quiz, so they've got to practice those in that module. So they have all the types that they could probably do most commonly in the courses. But I don't know that we have any data of how much those 2 modules about Sakai are actually used now since the master's been renewed.
I
Awesome.
had sent out a message to all College 101 faculty asking that they please do this. The thing that I think the challenge with College 101 is that historically, everybody that's taught it modifies it kind of how they want to teach it. Okay. And I know that there were some people that never covered Sakai at all.
Right.
As we
Right.
move Sakai so we're working very hard in our department to make Sakai be seen across the campus as an educational technology tool that can be used in all courses, not just online courses, especially with the student retention software. There's data that needs to come from Sakai to make that system work correctly. The grades, it's going to be looking, at a final grade that's calculated in Sakai, as well as first assignment submitted and last assignment submitted. So ideally, faculty for every course should not only be putting their grades in Sakai, which we've been trying to get them to do since I started in this role 2 years ago. We've been at this for 2 years and really have not made much progress. But also have them take assignments and do testing through Sakai as well. I don't know why anyone would want to deal with papers when they don't have to anymore. But there's some people I know, English has said that's probably a no-go for them, accepting things only through Sakai because I'm sure they still like to get out their red pen and mark papers. I've retired
Yeah,
mine.
I get that. I get that.
I've retired my red pen. Yeah, so the more you guys can do from the student success perspective of, I think giving people a roadmap to College 101, and these are the
Yes.
things that you have to hit.
Yes.
Please make Sakai part of that.
Yes, and that's my goal, is to make sure that they're A, doing it at all, but B, doing it at the very beginning of the semester, because what I know from the admission side is that we briefly talk about Sakai during orientation, but a student
Yeah.
might attend orientation in May or June and then not talk about Sakai, look at Sakai until they have full access to it at the start of the semester. So yeah, I'm
Right.
gonna definitely push that as much as I can for all College 101s. So
Okay,
thank you.
good. Okay, folks, I hate to do this. Is there any last questions? Because my flooring people, I think, are done. And they need moolah from me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. If there's any other questions that anybody has, please feel free to email me.
Take
Okay,
care,
ladies,
everyone.
What?
I said, take care, everyone.
Oh, take care, Martin. Have a good day and
You
weekend.
too.
It's Friday, right?
Yes, amen.
There we go. Okay.